Okay, it's me, Geordie Pete Redding, on another edition of Hollywood Balls, sponsored by the Football app, the largest growing football community online. I was just saying off air to my next guest, it's a one that I've been waiting for a very long time. So it's a very, very warm Hollywood Balls welcome to Mark Hateley.
How you doing, Geordie?
Very well, thanks. We're very well. Now, before we get started, I've got to ask you, were you aware, did you know, in my research, my thorough research of your amazing career, that your name and your birth date represents topaz? Now, topaz is the epitome of strength and knowledge. So before we move on, I'll let that sink in.
Hopefully I won't disappoint.
What have you been up to recently?
Just trying to keep myself busy. You know what it's like. It's difficult times. As I say, we just started the podcast, the 10-10, and I do one with Alec Ray, moving the goalposts. So we're trying to be everything Rangers. So it's been a good year for us with how the season's gone with Rangers Football Club, and long may that continue. So yes, keep you focused. I've been fortunate to come into the company and sort of. At ground level sort of stuff, you know what it's like. Ground level, put a lot of hard work into it, and and try to get that message out and get the content that people want to listen to. So that's what's been keeping me, sane. I think the word is that we're all looking for, and just cracking on with that.
Just out of interest, how does it differ nowadays? I mean, when you were playing, and obviously you were used to your media duties. Do you find podcasts is a different animal? Is it somewhere where you're a bit more relaxed? You can talk and look back with fond memories on and discuss things.
I think, Geordie, I've always been sort of comfortable. I think in front of a camera, and it's just another camera for me. Whether it's a TV station or whatever, I just sit down and, as my dad says, you get asked a question, you tell the truth, and that's the secret of being in and around football. For a long time. I think sometimes the truth does hurt a lot of people, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. So I tried to be honest to my dad, who was a top striker in his day, and obviously back in the old dark days of the 50s and the 60s. I try to be true to myself and true to his teachings.
Interestingly enough, it brings me nicely into my first question. There's a lot of footballers, that have grown up, still are. It's a cycle where the family are heavily involved in the game. Do you think it was inevitable that you would follow in your dad Tony's footballing footsteps?
I think so. I don't know. Most families, like sons, try to emulate fathers. I don't know if that's true. But it was for me, definitely. I think. From a very, very early age, I was taken in with my dad, just jump in the car, and even like 4 or 5 years old, I'd be on the training grounds and just watching, as you do, kicking a ball around and just unaware to me, you soak in all that in, the study of the game of football, characters, emotions. A Monday morning, before I was at school, you'd be on that, and you'd be sort of, looking at players after a win and after a loss and different reactions and all that sort of stuff. So, unbeknown to me, I was getting a football education from a very, very early age, and I'm 60 this year, so I can, I've done pretty well.
You have some great cities stamped on that passport of yours, which we're going to get on to. But it all started a Coventry debut at Wolves in 1979. It was a 3-0 win. And I ask most of my guests this on the Legends series. Do you remember much about the game?
Yeah, because I do. Because I got to play up against the great Emlyn Hughes, who was at Wolves on that day. And to be fair, Emlyn was a great guy and a screecher of a voice, but he was always a nice guy. I found anyway, personally. Did a lot of talking, as you did, and then so trying to wind you up and all that sort of stuff. But it was I think to make your debut in that sort of game, I played in the game with a young Gary Bannister as well, who scored, I think, on that day. But it's just if you want to make your debut against somebody, then there's no more iconic name than Emlyn Hughes. I know, obviously, he was the the back end of his career, but it was still a great privilege, but unenjoyable because we won the game, which is the most, and I got my win bonus, which was even more important because I think back in the day, you know, the salaries weren't too big.
It's great stuff. I was looking at your move to Pompey, and I have to say that you were a bit of a visionary because it's more commonplace nowadays in what you did, but you knew that game time might be limited where you were currently, and that everything fell into place with Bobby Campbell. That move that you sort of, I wouldn't say gambled because you knew and you were correct in taking that move. But was there one thing Bobby Campbell said to you that stood out that convinced you this was for you?
Yeah, there was one. There was one. Getting to that before that, Jody, I had a big fallout with my dad. I never spoke to my dad for about 10 months because of the fact I'd moved from the top tier down to the second division. Really didn't sit well with him because never leave the top flight. It's always hard to get back. So, but I had that belief in myself, as you said. Yes. I was playing left wing, maybe a centre forward role at Coventry City, but I knew that I could be the number 9, what I always wanted to be, through the middle, playing through the middle. And there was 2 or 3 teams that had come in for me at that particular stage. I think we'd gone through the Gordon Mill stage, and the Dave Sexton, who was tremendously good with the young prospects, who Coventry had a really good side there. Bobby Gould came in, and that completely turned me off from staying at Coventry. So Bobby sat down with his chairman. We had a discussion. No agents back then for me, and he just, he sold the club to me. We're coming through the ranks. He said, "I've got Alan Biley, who's a journeyman, but scored lots of goals. The little sort of player, as you had the little and big player back in the day." But he came to me and he just said, "Yeah." And I said, we did the deal. I'm not on the train, literally the training ground. The first day he came up to me, and he was quite a flamboyant man. Bobby was a great guy for me. And he just said to me, he says, "The one thing I want to get from you, I want you to be angry. I don't want you to run around and punch people, but I just want you to be angry with the ball. Right? Nobody's going to take this ball off you. Right. You defend it with your life, right? And that ball becomes yours. Whether you're angry when you're running to chase the ball, you're going to get the ball. And that's all I want to see from you." And that was probably, until the Milan stage, the biggest piece of information that I needed to add to my game to make me be that player where I wanted to eventually get to. So it was a simple piece of information passed on in the right way, and it obviously got me to have a great season, and a mad 3 months towards the end of that season.
Obviously that advice paid dividends. I've got to ask you though, before you moved to Milan, did you have any reservations personally? Because many have gone across. Big names as well have gone. Many have failed. Did you even think yourself, "Whoa, is this the right move?"
Never, because I always wanted to be, the driving force in the whole of my career was to be better than my dad, without 100%. And it took me obviously a couple of 2 or 3 years to get out of the shadow of my dad, because my dad's shadow was a big shadow.
Yeah.
Scored a lot of goals, played for a lot of big clubs, a lot of big managers. So comparisons, I always wanted to get away from that. And I said to my dad, "I'm going to be better than you," and that doesn't go down well with your dad when you're speaking to your dad like that. But that's the sort of confidence or arrogance or whatever you want to call it. Confidence it was for me.
Yeah.
To drive me forward. And I always thought that back then, obviously you all used to watch Channel 4 and the Italian league on a Saturday morning.
Wouldn't miss it.
All the goals, top league, top players. And you have that in the back of your mind, think it'll never come, but you always have that dream of playing in that top league. And as I say, that the year I had at Portsmouth, I mean, you're a Newcastle boy, yeah?
I am, yeah.
Yeah. I think I scored 4 goals in that year up at St James's against France in the under-21s, right? So went on to win that, and then I got the thing to go to on the South American trip. Got to play for the full side, and this all was happening within that Portsmouth year. which was a step down. So we won that. I got the trip to South America.
Amazing.
John Barnes scored that shitty, dribbly goal. And I scored the winner. And nobody ever remembers that one because it's just a run-of-the-mill header against the boy Moser at the far post, which gets you noticed on the world stage. So I'm a 21-year-old boy, had a half-decent season, and it's just gone crazy. I mean, Ray Wilkins walked into the room literally 2 or 3 days after that and just said, "You fancy a move to Milan?" And I'm this naive 21-year-old thinking, "Oh, I don't think Portsmouth will sell me. I think I've still got 2 years left on a contract." But I said, "Oh," he said, "seriously, they've been on the phone, would like to have talks." So he went away, came back after 3 days and just said, "Yeah, the deal's been done." And I said, "Wow." I said, "Well, it's not, because they haven't talked to me yet." He said, "Well, you'll be flying back very shortly. They're going to contact Bobby." And it was all absolutely a surreal moment. It was just bang, everything being thrown at you. I was still enjoying the fact that I'd won the under-21 European Championship. Never mind playing in the Maracana and scoring the winning goal. That's the thing of super dreams.
It is.
So yeah, and then that escalates, and then to signing for AC Milan, which is the greatest league in the world of that period. And so nowhere better place to go and become a better footballer.
We were just talking off air about that header. Obviously, it's etched in folklore. But what I loved was you were amazed to witness I'm going to get this right, the Sovrastia Mali, the banner a few years back. The Milan fans had you on there. They unfurled this huge banner, which means they really took you to thetheir hearts, didn't they?
Yeah, that's the Curvo Sud. That's the iconic support that have been. I was over a couple of years ago for their 50th anniversary. Great boys, but they are absolutely unbelievable faith for the club. But no, I think they just. I mean, I always looked at myself as being, and I always see myself as being a football supporter. I've always been a football supporter. And I had the chance to become a football player. And if I'm watching a game of football, all I want to see is an honest player. And that's all I wanted to be all my career, is to be honest and to give the fans that honesty. And that's hard work, tackling, never giving up, creating whatever it needed to do for the team. I was there to be able to do it. And I think that's what they saw from me right at the beginning. I got sent off in my first game in Coppa Italia with a headbutt, good old-fashioned headbutt to the big.
No message.
Yeah, that was booting me all over the park. And I think from that moment, before that goal, I'd gone to the next level with the support. Actually working for beIN Sport out in Qatar at the time. And,
okay.
Our neighbours. I was in front of the giant screen, and I hadn't seen it, right? But we had the presenter, and I think there was Ruud Hullet there, and there was a couple of other guys there as well, sort of stuff. And they were all laughing their heads off at me, and because I hadn't seen it, and I said, well. And then once I had seen it, I just turned around and I said, "Well, you never lose it, do you? Really?" to the guys, and honestly, we rolled around laughing for ages. But that's I think that's the importance of that's the Curva Sud. The Curva Sud is the ultras that it's a 52 years now. Good guys, but they are very influential over the football club, and I think they're hardworking, supporters of the football club. And I always saw myself as a hardworking, supporter that got the chance to play football by being honest, working hard for the team, trying to score goals, but do anything to put smiles on everybody's face. And I think that's what endeared me to them before I even scored that goal.
Yeah.
But as I say, it's folklore, and I'll be ever remembered for one goal. But hey, it's AC Milan we're talking about. There was 92,000 people, and in the blink of an eye, you can get 92,000 people in the palm of your hand. to stand up, right, and give them a smile on the face, and that's how I played the game.
And I think, but they warmed to you for more than that. I mean, as you said, it was all about your endeavour. And football fans, there's a lot said about football fans, but they aren't daft. They know who's up for it. They know who's up for a fight, and they know that you then took their love and passion exactly toward it. So that was great. Now, I've got to say, Mark, with so many celebrities at the moment doing travel and food programs, I've come up with a great new show for you. But if you think about it, your next stop was Monaco. You could have your own little sort of jaunt around Europe, couldn't you? With travels with Mark. What was like
football and food? That's what we could call it. There you go.
What was life like under Arsene Wenger?
Completely different from Milan. The situation in Milan, I was, and I don't say this in an arrogant way, you get to such a state of stardom with the Milan people that it wasn't really. I couldn't go out anywhere. I just went to the training ground in San Siro and then back to the village I lived in, which was between the two. So if I was going to go out, I had to phone up the owner of a restaurant or something like that. Literally couldn't do anything. So going to Monaco, which it was beneficial for myself and for Berlusconi at the time, because I didn't think he knew that I could come and bite him back. So. Yeah. But I thought it was the time. It was the right time, because I Milan through and through. I don't think I could have given what I gave for Milan to any other club. So Monaco was a good area, a good region for me. Got young kids as well, and it allowed me to experience more of a family life, outdoor life, walk around the streets. And enjoy a different culture and a different way of life. And part of that was Arsene Wenger. He'd just come to the club. Probably, I think it was his first signing. And then, we went on to have a really good year that year. Literally 3 weeks after that, Glenn Hoddle came in to play alongside or just behind me, who is still a good friend and a really good, probably the greatest midfield player I've ever played with anyway, for creativeness. But Arsene was very intense, young man, 34 years old, 35 years old. So literally there's not 10 years between us sort of stuff, So, but what I got from him was a completely different look at the game of football, and preparation was slightly different to the Milan style. But he appreciated everybody and held, because we had some great players, Battiston, Amoros, and Luke Sonor, and a lot of Ramon Diaz, who were partnered up front, who was married on us for Argentina. So he dealt with us as individuals, but what he did like, and I think he liked what the English British player brought to the French boys. Yeah. A lot of their guys smoked and we didn't smoke, but we liked a beer after the game. So we flew everywhere for all the games. So on the plane back, we'd have a couple of beers and got that team spirit more or less together. And he appreciated that, I think. And I think you can see that where he took that into when he went to Arsenal. So he was a young man learning how to deal with players and all that sort of stuff. Very intense. Travelled everywhere on his days off to watch reserve leagues in Germany and all over France. But to be that knowledgeable coach that he turned out to be at Arsenal. I think actually I did a piece on in the Sunday newspaper when he'd come back from Japan to learn a different culture, and said, "Who is this man?" And I said, "Well, you'll find out very, very shortly, but you won't be disappointed." All right. Wow. And, so true to the word, he went on to take Arsenal to a completely different level with his psychology and his approach to the game of football. So it's a real pleasure to be able to have worked underneath him. And we won the championship and went to a cup final. I made some great friends out there, had some really good parties, and I think that's
I bet they were quiet.
Oh, it was. Got royalty involved in parties. We went to the cup final. I was suspended for the cup final. I couldn't play in it in that first year. So we had Prince Albert, same age as me, and his dad and all his sisters were all to do after we'd lost it. But it was the same, I won't say who started the bread fight, but a bread fight started in this top hotel restaurant. There was rolls being thrown all over the room, and it was an absolute riot. But they were so, and Prince Albert is such a good guy, loves his sport, and he's got the history with the Winter Olympics and the tobogganing and all that sort of stuff. But he loved his football as well. He had a lot of time to spend with us. I had a lot of time to spend with him. I had a big injury at Rangers. At Monaco.
Yeah.
And we had some quality time together. Let's put it that way. So it was real good people. And as I say, they're coming up for their anniversary very, very shortly. So we'll be been invited over. So looking forward to catching up with them. I've been down to 5 or 6 of the Grand Prix, and you always sort of you bump into each other. And you cannot get obviously into Monaco without him knowing that you're there. So he's invariably tapping you down. He's a nuisance, really.
Well, he's a good mate to have, especially with the F1. You mentioned briefly there Rangers. Now, Glasgow, we're getting into that now, the Rangers period. But I've got to say to you, what I've noticed by doing these interviews, Mark, is that great players who've played for all of the great teams, they have one amazing thing in common. It's drive. It's like it's there's no time to sort of dawdle on one game. And when I was and when I researched it, you famously said, you look back at your first season, but you said that the Aberdeen win was great, but straight after that Aberdeen win, you were thinking about the next thing and what would make that next success for that Rangers side. That for me, that is definitely the epitome of a top level winner.
Yeah, top level performers, whatever sport you're in, you're driving for the perfect game every time you go, or the perfect drive back to Formula One. You're driving for that perfect. I think Ayrton Senna, who was a neighbour of mine in Monaco, just lived a couple of floors below. He always said, he had periods where he was completely at one with the car, and it's the same in football. You have that performance, but the guys that stay up there, Steven Gerrards and all this sort of stuff, they're the guys that don't read the Sunday newspapers and know how they played, if they've had a bad game or a good game.
Yeah,
invariably it's more good games, but you enjoy that moment, and I think the importance of it is you enjoy that moment with the rest of the team and the management, and then you park it. You completely forget about it. And I've never watched. Trust me, I've seen that goal. People send me that goal, this certain goals on the WhatsApp groups and all that sort of stuff. But I've never watched a game back ever.
Wow.
Since the day I retired, because that's where it is. It's in the past, and it should be parked there. It's an experience, and then I move forward and do what I do with my life going forward. And that's how I was always been. Whether I played badly or played well, it's always you learn from it and you move on, and you want to be better, the best you can ever be on that day. And that's always been my driving force of whatever I do.
It's funny because I think of you guys that were at that Rangers team at that time. I was a boy going to St James's Park, so we were going to the Gallagher end. And I don't know if you ever saw this, but there was a period of time where, being in Newcastle, obviously we weren't too far away from Glasgow, and half of the Newcastle Gallagher end supported Rangers and half supported Celtic. So much so that there was the half Rangers, half Newcastle hats. So the sort of invasion of you guys going there and turning Rangers into a powerhouse was it wasn't just in Scotland as well. It was south of the border.
Down with Newcastle boys, I think, because we've got a history, Glasgow and Newcastle anyway, from the shipyards of people, going between jobs and what have you. So there's a lot of history there between the two, and long may that continue. We are similar sort of cities, and we enjoy our football. We enjoy a night out. We enjoy chips and cheese and all that sort of stuff. So they're the working people. The working people, and all great football clubs have working people in the community that support the football club. Without that, you don't have a football club. So if you've got that mix of Geordie and Scotsman, then it's a winning formula.
Can't go wrong. Now everybody loves an old enemy scenario. How special was Rangers versus Leeds? Because it was billed again by our friends in the media as the Battle of Britain. But there was some absolutely cracking names playing for both sides in that battle.
Yeah, absolutely. Driving force for that was everybody had written Rangers off before we'd even kicked a ball. The newspapers, English journalists, as you're well aware of, are not slow in putting Scottish football down and Scottish goalkeepers and all that sort of stuff historically. And it was quite poignant for me because Howard Wilkinson was one of my first coaches at under 12 for South Nottinghamshire schoolboys.
Wow.
And so he was in charge of them sort of stuff. So great names: Eric Cantona, Gordon Strachan, Gary Mack, all these all top team. Just won the league, obviously.
Yeah.
And it was in the importance, I think, not so much on the day, but as you look at it now, because that was the inaugural Champions League. Our badges now ingrained into the Champions League badge, the 8 teams that first went in and started that up. So very, very proud of that. But the day was up at Ibrox. Gary Mack scored and silenced the crowd within literally 4 minutes of the game, which that's what you try to do. You remember them crowds, yeah?
Funnily enough,
remember them. But he scored too early, and I said to Gary Mack during the game, I said, "You scored too early. You should never score early here at Ibrox," because Gary Mack obviously is a big Rangers supporter, growing up, through his Motherwell days. So we got back, we won that league game 2-1, and then we took him down there, and I scored a good, decent goal in the first few minutes, and then we scored probably one of the best European goals that I've been involved with, which was the McCoist header. I onto that day completely destroyed the Leeds United side, completely destroyed them over 2 games, and they fell away badly that season as well. That whole team sort of imploded. Eric Cantona obviously moved on, and that sort of player out of a team, you're starting to decline. And I was very proud of that moment. I went back to play for about 6 months with Rushy when I was down at QPR on loan with Howard there, which was great fun. And the fans really did take me on board. They didn't hold it against me for that moment, but no, that game was what Glasgow Rangers was all about for me. It was a team that could, and I said at the start of that campaign that we could go all the way in this, because we were good enough defensively and we could score a goal from being defensive to putting the ball in the back of the net in transition within 5 seconds. And that's what we did, and we were very good at it.
You were, and luckily enough, you talk about Ibrox. I'm lucky enough to have been there once as a fan. It was Ali McCoist's testimonial, and they played Newcastle. Now, we were so excited because we were having a weekend there, and we had tickets. We had the new Newcastle top. The tune were sort of on talk. Everyone was talking about them. We had Andy Cole, we had Beardsley. So we got to Ibrox, and my friend's father, who had the tickets for us, said, "Look, lads, I've got some bad news." And I was like, "Oh, here we go." And he said, "I could only get tickets for the Rangers end." And I said, "Oh, right, okay, that okay. Well, it's a testimonial. It's fine." We went in there. Boy, I tell you what, it was probably one of the most amazing experiences, and it was just fantastic. But it's you can see how fans play such a big part. You were saying that fans, remember them? They played such a big part, and you can just see why Ibrox drives people on. It was a fantastic evening.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's a friendly or it's a league game, a cup game, whatever, it's under the lights. There's no better place. The atmosphere, St. James is a similar sort of thing. But I've been lucky enough to play in, as you say, all of them: the Azteca, the Maracanã, Bernabeu, all of them, San Siro, Wembley. but see the atmosphere on a European night at Ibrox, it's up there. It's fantastic, and that's the level and stage that everybody should be aspiring to be wanting to play under. It's major pressure to play under that sort of strain of what the fans want, but that's what great clubs are all about, and that's what Newcastle is. That's what Rangers is. That's what Milan is. You know, you need to be winning games, and that's why great players thrive in that atmosphere.
Now, I like to think. I was telling David, a colleague, that I like to think that I know my football. I'm pretty good with my stadiums, my nicknames. My granddad taught me. I went to my first game when I was 4 years old, but I came across something before this interview.
About 65 years ago, was it?
There or thereabouts. I feel watching my current side. I feel that. But I came across this thing called the Wee Red Book, an institution in Scotland, something I've never heard of. Were you introduced to it in your time there?
Yeah, I think you get one delivered every season to you as a player as well. We did do back then anyway.
Yeah,
I have a distant memory of getting the Wee Red Book. You know.
And was it just full of stats and games and was it like a Rothman sort of thing? Was it?
Yeah. That's what it was. Yeah, and it was like first day back in, literally plumped right in front of you. And
wow.
Some players took it and some didn't. I've got that in a distant memory.
But fine. I'm going to try and dig out a picture of it and send it to you. Now, we often get messages on our live show. I co-host with Kevin Campbell on a Saturday, Arsenal Ledge. And for some reason, John Burridge has taken into messaging us during the show, our live show. Now, when he was at Hibs, he recalled a semi-final win. Yeah, Budgie recalled a semi-final win over Rangers, where he said there were serious verbals being thrown around in the tunnel between you and him. Now, how important, though, all joking aside, when you
I just kept saying to him, because my dad played against John Burridge. You know, so that's what I kept saying.
What I wanted to know for the fans is that, though, you know, how important, though, is it in that tunnel to try and, you know, get a bit of one-upmanship before you get out there?
Yeah, win and lose a game in the tunnel. And it's simple as that. Old firm games we used to line up, and you could tell what the day was going to be like, you know. And we just classics. Ian Ferguson would bounce the ball and bounce it off some of the Celtic players' head. He could just keep apologising. They keep throwing the ball back. They keep doing it. You know, and that's what it is. It's intimidation. You know, you've got to intimidate the quickest thing you have to do. And I had always the first 15 minutes. I never looked at a team sheet because I was never bothered who I was going to be playing against. And that is like a self-confidence. A lot of people call it arrogance, but it was just, I had this in my belief of the first 15 minutes or what I wanted to do. And the most important thing for me was to find their weakness straight away, right? So I didn't look at the team. So every game I had to go out and find the weakness, but you would know you'd be coming up against a certain player, especially in Scotland, four times a season. So the job became easier, you know, because you find the weakness. And then if you find one weakness, you look for the second weakness, and that's how I worked. To be able to then go for the next 15 minutes up here. And if that's gone, the game is going to go my way. And that's something I got from being at Milan, you know, to find a weakness in a very defensive, organised football. So that's where it came from. Just so you find that, and then you move on to the next one. So at the end of the day, by the first half, the perfect game is you don't want anybody that wants to mark you. Simple as that.
Fascinating stuff. Now, I can't let you go without issuing a massive congratulations to Steven Gerrard and Rangers on a magnificent title win. The timing's fantastic. Will the aim be, do you think, Mark, to kick on now and usher in a new era of dominance, 10 in a row, perhaps?
Yeah, 10 in a row is difficult in the modern game. It's keeping players in one place. That's why recruitment becomes super special. We have a good system in place. we're three windows down into what we want to be able to bring to the club. So we track a lot of players, a lot of young players, and I think the working demographic for Scottish football is that model, bringing younger players in, which we've been quite successful in doing over the period while Stephen's been here. We look back to Mark Hateley. We've got Ross Wilson as the sporting director, who's taken on that same sort of role, the same sort of principle, which is the way the Scottish football has to survive, even the big two, the lack of investment and what have you. But we're in a good place right now. Stephen's brought back that professionalism that was lacking for a long, long time, and that aura that comes with his professionalism. A lot of criticism that he didn't have the experience, but great people surround themselves with even smarter people, right? And that takes everybody to the right place where we want to get to. And he's done that absolutely, but it's only the start, and I think he's just touched on it over the last 3 or 4 days. It's there's more to come, and he knows there's more to come from this football club, and this football club can give Stephen whatever he wants, basically. We have a board that are backing him. We have a history, 150 years next year, of more greatness than down times. And Stephen is the right man for us. 3 years down the line, we've finally won something where a lot of boards would have bailed out on the manager after the second year. But the board has been true to Stephen, and we have Stephen here now to 2024 or something like that. But now is the time to strive for even better things. We've got a European campaign that we're still in at the moment. We've got a Scottish Cup still to go for. So if you want to have weekends like we've just had, then forget about the weekend that you've just had. Right? That's
plan for the next.
That's what he'll bring. And wait for the next one, and wait for the next party. And once you're hooked, you'll have every player wanting to come and play for you. Which for Stephen Gerrard as your manager, I think that's been key. Of a major attraction to a football club that's been not in the right place for a long time.
Absolutely fantastic. Massive congratulations. But massive thanks to you, Mark. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Fascinating for our Legend series. And I know that everyone has enjoyed it as well. All we do is we ask that we stay in touch, and perhaps that you will come back on for Hollywood Balls, and we'll see you very soon.
Yeah, so it's great, Jordan. Great to be on. Keep in touch, and no doubt we'll hook up very shortly.